Western Australia is a vast state, nearly 1/3 of the entire Australian continent. To many, it is a harsh and unforgiving land, but for more than 40,000 years, it has been home to one of the world's oldest surviving cultures, that of Aboriginal Australians. It is a culture developed in harmony with the continent's fragile ecosystem, a connection reflected in its spiritual relationship with the land. But since the arrival of Europeans, Aboriginal people have struggled to preserve their culture and identity while adapting to a modern industrialised world. It has not been easy, but increasingly, Indigenous Australians have been engaging with that world, taking on leading roles in the community and government while securing an important place in industry by taking up the challenge of establishing their own business enterprises.
My mother was part of the stolen generation. She was removed, all my family or her brothers or my uncles and aunties were all removed, forcibly removed from their parents back in the 1930s and 40s, basically from the northwest, we're Yamaji people.
Well, I'm Aboriginal. Mum's Aboriginal, Dad is German-Scottish.
Mum's come from Mulga Downs, near Carra Camp. Dad at Woodstock, and brother John is from Abydos.
My mother is from the desert, so she's a Jaru woman, and she went to school over in Fitzroy Crossing. And my father is from Balangara country.
And my father's an Irishman and my mother's a full-blood Aboriginal lady.
My great-great-grandmother was a full-blood Wonnarua woman coming from the Upper Hunter region in New South Wales.
The mining boom in Western Australia has resulted in a period of tremendous growth for the state, with virtually all sectors of commerce and industry benefiting as local and multinational companies have expanded their operations. The resulting growth in business activity, investment and population has seen Perth become the fastest growing city in Australia. It is an environment that has stimulated new business opportunities for those with ideas and initiative. But have those opportunities flowed through to Aboriginal Australians? And have Indigenous enterprises been able to participate in this boom time? Kim Hames, the Deputy Premier and former Minister for Aboriginal Affairs in Western Australia, has a particular interest in the role and development of Indigenous business in the state.
Well, Indigenous businesses haven't been around all that long, and they started from probably people seeing tourists coming around, tourists wanting to have an Indigenous experience, and people starting to provide those opportunities. And Kirigeni National Park is probably a great example of a tourist facility. And I think by and large there is a strong view of the general public that we want to encourage as much as we possibly can, particularly in the mining industry, but also in tourism and hospitality areas as well.
And in the remote Kimberley region, it was tourism that provided the business opportunity for Sissy Gore Birch Gold, who runs bus tours from Kununurra through the Ord Valley and Bungle Bungles.
Yeah, so the business, it sort of came up a couple of years ago. So when I was working as an employment coordinator with Mirong Gadgerong, and there was an opportunity where a business was actually being sold. One of the tour guides were leaving school. I just thought it was a great opportunity to buy this bus because I'm interested, well, I'm not really interested in tourism, but it was a great start. So you need to go through all this licensing, insurance, public liability. You know, you've got to get your own accounting, you've got to get your own signage and printing of all the, you know, your business cards, your pamphlets. It takes a lot of time. So what I've done in the last, well, this year, we've got new signage on the bus now, so it's a bit more about me, so the business. So it took me a long time to come to that stage, you know, like I was like, oh, just leave it as it is. And I say, no, you know, people say, you need to make it more Aboriginal, you know, like that's got to identify you, so.
We have had successive state governments, small business training programs for Aboriginal people. We've had huge numbers of training in general for people within those communities, both both in the cities, in the educational institutions, but also in the smaller Aboriginal communities. So within tourism, within Department of Small Business, within a whole range of government areas, there are training programs and development opportunities and some funding to help small businesses get established and find their way. Because it's tough to run a business, and for Aboriginal people it's even harder to have that knowledge and opportunity to learn how businesses work.
It's a very complex topic. You can't isolate where Indigenous enterprises are from looking at the history of Indigenous issues in Australia, Aboriginal issues in Australia. For much of that history, Aboriginal people experienced systemic and institutionalised racism, and that, you know, disempowers people. It robs them of their self-reliance. It robs them of their worth. You can't wipe away. I mean, you can't wipe away the history. You've got to understand the history of what's happened to understand why people are living in often despairing circumstances, and why there is intergenerational disadvantage and dysfunction. You know, you've got to understand the history to understand that, but you've got to get beyond it. It can't be an excuse for continued failure. It can't lead to an expectation of continued failure, and we're starting to hear that said.
Like my grandmother was taken away from her parents, never seen her parents again as a 12-year-old. Taken miles away from where her traditional country. My grandfather was done the same. My grandmother was mustered up with horses in 1912, you know, and taken away still naked while taken over the Forest River Mission, you know, never seen his parents again, you know, nothing. And that sort of thing that came, and it ain't that long ago, you know. My grandmother and grandparents witnessed massacre, you know, of Aboriginal people in 1926 in their life, and that's just not that long ago.
While not forgetting the experiences of his own family, Donald Chilung has been able to move beyond those issues to take advantage of the opportunities that have arisen, largely as a result of native title initiatives in the Kimberley region, to establish his own business operations in Kununurra.
Well, like I've been through native title claim, and I worked for the Land Council, and I fought hard, and I thought, well, after we won a lot of our native title back, I thought, well, you know, I'm going to have a go at business and labour hire, sort of, to try and give a lot of my countrymen an opportunity to work in the construction world, like you know, really like road construction, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, it's been pretty successful till now. I've just sort of battled along. I haven't had a mining company that sort of gave me a full continuity of work, but I've done it the hard way, and I'm not far off really knowing something big, so yeah, I just keep plodding along. I actually own two companies. This is one I work, and the other one called Jungle Civil. One I work is more the labour hire construction stuff, and the Jungle Civil is more owned machinery, like I own graders and rollers, and that owns that. And see, I don't employ anybody in Jungler. Jungler just owns assets, machinery and that sort of stuff. I had a bit of help from my corporation, something, because when we negotiated Ord Stage 2, which is the ore development out here, we negotiated that, you know, that whoever develops Ord Stage 2 would have to negotiate an Aboriginal development package, which creates like Indigenous employment in support Indigenous businesses, and like I do landscaping and concreting and machinery. I do anything, basically. I'll have a go at anything.
What you've seen over the last 10 years in particular is a very significant growth in Aboriginal entrepreneurs, driven largely, I guess, by the mining boom. It's created a lot of opportunities for Aboriginal Australians all through WA, in particular in the Pilbara, where we have a lot of Aboriginal remote communities, for example, that have been able to get hold of some of the opportunities that the mining companies have made available. And that's another reason why, because there has been a real push from the mining sector to ensure that they get significant numbers of Aboriginal people, local Aboriginal people, employed on their mine sites. Now that may be whether they're employed directly by that mining company or whether they offer contracts to those particular small business people. So, for example, you've got Aboriginal people who own, operate or are employed in downstream mining sector organisations such as catering or construction or even landscaping.
And landscaping is on the list of general services provided by ALM Contracting, one of an increasing number of Aboriginal enterprises in the Pilbara town of Port Hedland.
And we put all the playground equipment in, so all that softfall stuff, we put all of that in. And we tidied all of this up. We put all of these new posts in, we did the footpath up to here.
ALM Contracting stands for Anthony Leslie Martin. So I couldn't think of anything else at the time, so I just named it after me. We do some gardening, we do some earthworks, so sort of civil kind of construction, but on a small scale. We also do painting, carpentry, security fencing, and then just general labour. And we try and target small jobs that other big companies won't be interested in. So that's good. It keeps us busy every week. Being such a small company, we have to be really versatile and keep looking for different jobs all the time. So on top of that, we also do a bit of pest management, and then we also do like commercial landscaping. So just big projects as well. So we don't do residential home landscaping, only projects, so just for big commercial, like installing parks and those sort of things. Some of our jobs have been for the town of Port Hedland, but funded by mining companies. So they do a lot of improvements around town. So they'll fund the construction of a new park and footpaths and children's play equipment, and we go and install that. I've worked in mining since 1999, and in 2009 I started my own business just as a trainer and assessor on your big mobile mining equipment. So I would just, for the first year, I just assess people to see if they were competent to operate a bulldozer or a grader or a big truck, those sort of things. And then I saw an opportunity to do some contracting in town, on site with one of the big mining companies, and with BHP Billiton, where I used to work. So it was quite an easy transition to go from contracting by myself to still having great contacts at BHP and able to get back in there as providing a service other than just assessing by myself. The government and all your big companies in Australia at the moment have requirements to engage Indigenous contractors, and I think setting up 4 years ago was a really good move, because even 4 years ago there were in this town maybe 3 Indigenous contractors, and I went to an event the other night and there'd have to be 100.
And my respects to the elders, past, present, future. I welcome all of you here today, and I hope that
the abundance of opportunities for Indigenous contractors in the mining industry is highlighted by the scale of events held to inform them of the latest ventures. While many of those attending represent new businesses, others are well established, either as contractors or, like Amanda Healy of Max Engineering, as providers of specialist services to the industry.
The intention I have found in working with the big mining companies is that they actually want you to succeed, and they try to work with you to make things work, despite whatever problems or issues you might have to work through. They're prepared to work through it with you, and that's incredible and invaluable. And as I said, I feel incredibly privileged to have worked with some of those people. My first foray into business was with another friend involved around the mining industry, and certainly in maintenance in the mining industry. That didn't work out, and I was there for about 18 months and decided to go off and do my own thing with another friend. So in 2005 we registered what has now become Max Engineering. Having worked around the mining industry, one of the things that was becoming obvious to us is that a lot of major projects have problems in the last 20% of their execution, if you like. So we decided to set up small, very highly skilled teams to go in and work on and escalating the last 20% of the work, or filling that gap, if you like. We found that unfortunately, the trouble with that sort of work is it's not consistent. You know, you can't keep people employed in a consistent stream. So we then decided to, or I started to look around and see what we could find, and we came across a workshop becoming available in Port Hedland. Early 2007 we started moving a lot of people up there. We've slowly built our clientele up from that time. The types of work that we're doing up there, we really started as just purely fabrication, and over time now we've developed, you know, further skills in, you know, AutoCAD, all sorts of steel work. We do structural steel, we do repair and maintenance of any of the processing equipment, minerals processing equipment on site, specialised welding, we do exotic metals. We have a machine shop on site that has drills and presses and brake presses and, you know, whatever. So whatever it is that you need doing with steel, we can pretty much do. Then a young French engineer came to visit me one afternoon, and Jerome brought a fantastic array of skills to the business. He brought a lot of work into the business because of his pure engineering skills. So we've you know, honed our skills from Jerome's establishment of engineering in the business, and we now can provide skills to BHP that they can't get outside of Perth in Western Australia. So the offering we have in Port Hedland is pretty much unique. We range across a few areas. We work in the infrastructure, we do ports and rails, we also do, you know, minerals processing, we do local infrastructure. You know, we build everything from conveyor systems to netball hoops, basically. And we've done each and every one of those things.
The Todd family has a traditional connection with the Pilbara region, and it was this connection that gave them their introduction to the business opportunities provided by the mining boom and the support needed to establish their own company.
The company is Kadaidra Contracting Services. We originated from the Pilbara, between 9 family members, been in the Pilbara all our lives, and we decided to go into business as a Pilbara Aboriginal business to work on Mum and Dad's country, and obviously to, you know, give something back to the girls in the family that obviously had a bit of a harder life than we have as boys who's worked in the mining industry. It started by I guess a camp out on Mum's country that we had during a general meeting, native title general meeting, and the family got together and had a discussion and the opportunity of going into business. Rio then organised a forum for us to attend, and traditional owners were all invited who wanted to go into business, and we decided that, well, a great opportunity for us was had come along, and we decided then also that it was time to give it a crack. You know, we've been in the mining industry between the 5 brothers for over 105 years. I guess for us we had the experience of doing mining, but not the experience of running the business. Once we'd made a decision to go into business, the first thing was to work on getting a business plan together. Now, with that, we had a great opportunity. I knew of BHP Billiton had a program set up for Pilbara Aboriginal businesses to go into business, and we put a business plan together at the expense of BHP Billiton, and we appreciate, you know, obviously that, given that opportunity and the support of BHP Billiton. We decided that we wanted to go into cranes because when Rio came to us and asked the native title holders if we were interested in going into business, well, naturally all the Pilbara Aboriginal business went into civil. So we had a chat between the brothers, and we saw that, hey, you know, Laurie brother Laurie's got a background in cranes, and that was the reason why we went into cranes. We come from another direction, so we thought that'd be better. We'd have better opportunities, even though we know that it was going to be hard out there because of the Freos and the boom logistics and that other, I guess, your opponents on the football field, I call it. It took us 3 months to get the Cat 3 with Rio Tinto, the Occupation Health and Safety set up. We got that set up, and a great job by Sister Sue and Rebecca. And once we got that in place, it allowed me to go and be the business development officer, I guess, for Kadaidri and start knocking on doors and saying, hey, look, we got this 100% Indigenous owned crane company, who are seeking opportunities.
Being local has given Peter and his family a very personal perspective on the dramatic changes that have occurred in Port Hedland.
We were in Port Hedland when there was only a 1 or 2 street town, with barely probably 100 people in it. And now there's something like 20-odd thousand. So, over time it's grown, and it's grown because of what the mining industry has been, I guess, in the boom.
The mining boom has undoubtedly created a unique period of growth and prosperity for Port Hedland, but inevitably the boom cycle will slow, and that will potentially impact on both the town and the businesses that operate there.
I have expressed some concerns about the vulnerability of those Aboriginal organisations to perhaps be the first to lose when mining companies look to cut their costs when commodity prices come off, or when the Australian dollar works adversely against them. At the moment, I don't think we've really seen that to any great extent in Western Australia, but it does worry me, particularly those industries, also those Aboriginal businesses, where the only clients that they have are the mining sector. So what I'm hoping is that we're now getting more Aboriginal companies that have matured, and so they have more than just mining companies as their clientele, and so that if, for example, they lose one client, they've got the opportunity with other clientele.
We've noticed things slowing down a bit anyway. Your big companies look like they're starting to restructure a little bit around using contractors. They might come back in a bit more a bit in-house, where they will do the services themselves. So I'm speaking to, at the moment, a consultant who now owns his own company, and he specialises in helping companies grab an opportunity and grow the business. So we're looking at a whole snapshot of my capacity and capabilities and every single staff member I've got, jobs that we can do that are out there at the moment, and ways we can do it better, and really try and take advantage of, it's weird, I'm trying to take advantage of less work.
I think we're now seeing, as populations increase in regional WA, in Broome, Kununurra and Port Hedland and Karratha, for example, other opportunities arise. Certainly in Perth, in Western Australia, you are seeing a significant rise of Aboriginal professionals, so the lawyers, the accountants, the service providers, the service industries, now that will be able to respond to the economic climates they find with much greater ease. And I think that's what you're getting in WA more generally, much more mature economy, a much more sophisticated economy that will find a lot more of their work coming from overseas, not just within Western Australia.
My name's Todd Russell. I own a company called The Digital Factory. We're probably one of the only privately owned Indigenous media production companies in Australia. We specialise in basically all forms of digital media, and that involves a diverse range from television shows, documentaries, we do television commercials, we're starting to do a lot of web-based material. Mostly what we do is corporate and mainstream, so we've basically developed ourselves in competition with every other production company. So we basically fight for every job that everyone else does, and we've based our business, and it's built over 10 years on developing basically good customer relationships and delivering a fabulous product. The media industry is very competitive, so You basically have to know what your client wants or what is going to give you that edge to make your client come back. The biggest thing and the hardest thing I found getting in this industry was when you knocked on doors in the early days and say, hey, I make videos. You knew the question that was going to come next, well, what have you done? And in this industry, you know, we call it our show reel. You know, your show reel is basically glimpses of the different types of products you've done. And that's what I found hardest. There's nothing to do with the education. It was basically company A wants to produce a video. They just want to know that whoever they pay to do it can deliver what they want or knows what they're talking about. So in the early days, it was the show reel was my biggest thing. Well, one of the things we have done since we started our business, which is 10 years now, is I can proudly say I've actually never lost a customer. That we still have our original customers that I did my first products with, who still, you know, might be every 2 years or 3 years they want a product. But our focus is, and it doesn't matter whether you're Indigenous or in business, if you want to do business in the real world, you've got to do what everyone else in business is out there doing. You know, you've got to know your stuff, but you've also got to have customer relations. You know, it's the most important thing.
From when we set up the business, our vision of Max Engineering was that it would be provide an exceptional service to our client. Our point of difference would be that when we did a job, we did it properly, to the best of our ability, every time, first time. Now, I'm not going to look you in the eye and say every single solitary job we've ever done, we've never made a mistake, because that's just not possible. But we certainly work very hard at making sure that when we send a job to a client, it's exactly what the client looks for. The quality of work that they get is at the best that they could possibly get, given the environment that they're in, and we try to do it for the best cost that we can.
Just try hard, just like anybody else. And that's one thing I've done from the start. I haven't tried to separate myself from anyone else. All we've done from day one is employ Aboriginal people, but keep the standard of the work exactly the same as everyone else, and not trying to identify as an Indigenous person that needs work. We're just doing a job like anyone else, so we can compete with other people doing the same work, and we win work, so it's working out really well.
Look, we don't want to be handed contract. At the end of the day, we know how to work hard for it, so at the end of it, that's what we require. You know what, if we put a tender in and we're not the best price, give us feedback and allow us to become better at the job, at what we do.
From day one, we set out to say, well, we're going to knock on the door as a video production company. The fact that we're Indigenous is irrelevant. We're out there to say, hey, we do video production, we do good video production, and we want to do your business. And once we've got a client on board, and that conversation or whatever comes up, I always say, well, by the way, did you know that we're an Indigenous-based production company? And it's amazing, because it's after you've actually done that work, done a fabulous job, they've got to know you, and you've got a great relationship, then it does work and it's great. But I've just always had this thing where I don't want to run out with this banner, and because, you know, in some circumstances it will actually work against you.
The bottom line for all these Indigenous business people is that although they acknowledge the importance of the support they have received from government, industry and personal mentors, their success is ultimately the direct result of their own initiative and their own enterprise. And while they have already achieved so much, they all still have goals for the future.
I want to look at film, which is another big area, short film, and then, you know, obviously one day I'd love to write and direct a feature film.
I've always had a picture in my head of being a much larger business than I am now. I have 35 to 40 employees. I think we could very easily double that with our current infrastructure. But once you start to move beyond that, I really do think that I need a much more substantial management structure in, and then you start to lose control of the people and what happens and how things work. And to me, that's a bit of an uncomfortable situation to be in. I'm still liking to control it.
I think in business you have to keep growing. If you stay small, you know, I think opportunities will bypass you and you'll just blow away. There'll be nothing left for you. I think you've got to keep grabbing every opportunity that comes past the door.
I'd like to keep growing my business, but at what point does it stop growing, and what point do you say big enough is big enough, you know? And I don't think I'm delusional where I think I'm going to have 200 staff and have a company that's, you know, outrageously big. I don't think that will happen, but I still think I can grow my business to a decent size where we can be really competitive with big companies. That's what I'd like to do. I'd like to compete with big companies on small jobs.
I think everyone in business wants to see themselves, you know, grow to a point. Obviously, I've found myself in the last few years, my role has changed as well. You know, when you start a business, everyone in a small business, I was everything, which I still am, but you know, you're the cook, you're the cleaner, you're the bottle washer, and you do every job you can. But to grow your business, you sort of get to that point where you realise, well, I can't do this, this, this and this because I just can't take it on. So you start to then move up a bit and sort of find, and the key again is finding the right people.
12 months ago, if you asked me that question, I'd say I wouldn't like to be that size, but I guess 12 months on and where we sit right now at the moment, I think we're going to be a sizable company that, or I'd like to be now, that sizable company of those NRW that still runs at 70-75% of Aboriginal employment.
Well, there's so many things I want to do, and it's just timing, you know, like, I mean, with this tour operation here, I want to be able to do the four-wheel drive trekking stuff, so that's why I'm doing my job now as an IPA coordinator, working with the traditional owners. So when I start up my four-wheel drive trekking, I can, you know, I can access all that country there anyway. So I'm talking with the old people. You know, I come from there. I've done that trip when I was, you know, younger, and you know, we used to do that road all the time. So that's what I'm aiming to do with the tourism business, and hopefully with my law degree, I want to try and do more advocacy stuff. So teaching our people about human rights and their rights. And
yeah, well, my theory is to get a business working for me and make a lot of money to be able to support my lifestyle living back on the land. That's what I'm doing. I'm building my own economy to live back on my land, not rely on government money.
There have been some great success stories in this state, and you know, I think those people need to be out there teaching and being mentors and helping to guide others. People, as they become better educated, will have better understanding of opportunities and a better ability to manage a business. So we've just got to keep encouraging people to do that, encouraging people to stay at school, encouraging mentors to go out there and say, look, this is what you can do with your life if you want to.
It's a big roller coaster ride, but it's a roller coaster ride that's been very profitable to the family. But I guess from our point of view, it's also been profitable to the mining companies, because we're the ones, you know, as traditional owners of the country, you know, we've worked on it with them.
The greatest thing ever happened to me is that I went into business and we just find out it's a totally different bloody structure, man. I tell you right there, it's inside out, really.